tonight. Amid renewed calls for a ceasefire deal for Gaza, Secretary Blinken holds high-stakes talks.
And there are really two things left to do: get the hostages home and bring the war to an end.
The latest from the Middle East. Plus, abortion takes center stage this election, how the issue is driving people to the polls. And as North Korea sends troops to help Russia's aid in Ukraine, a harrowing story of a Christian escaping the brutal regime in Pyongyang.
I had to eat insects to survive. After 400 days, I was released, malnourished, and can barely walk.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Intense fighting is underway tonight between Israel and Hezbollah as the U.S. scrambles to calm tensions in the Middle East. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. From CBN's headquarters in Virginia Beach, I'm Lori Johnson. Air raid sirens could be heard across Tel Aviv today, where Secretary of State Antony Blinken was visiting to kickstart negotiations between Israel and Hamas to end the war. Meanwhile, tensions between Hezbollah and Israel continue to escalate, with a constant exchange of airstrikes over the southern Lebanon border. CBN Washington correspondent Michelle London joins us now to tell us if the U.S. efforts to calm the conflict are working. Michelle.
Now is the time to end the war. That's the urgent message tonight from the Secretary of State, hours after his visit in Tel Aviv took an unexpected turn. The IDF confirmed Israeli jets struck down multiple buildings in southern Lebanon in response to an intercepted airstrike at a Tel Aviv military base near Blinken's hotel. He and others were forced to take shelter. Hezbollah later admitting to the strike. Once cleared from shelter, Blinken wasted no time urging Israel to use its recent victories against Hamas to seek a war-ending deal and bring back more than 100 hostages.
There are really two things left to do: get the hostages home and bring the war to an end with an understanding of what will follow.
And tonight, Blinken continues his negotiations in Saudi Arabia, meeting with the foreign minister. Meanwhile, the IDF is urgently warning civilians in parts of southern Lebanon to move at least 25 miles north to avoid dangerous attacks. Lori?
Michelle London reporting from our Washington bureau. Michelle, thanks. Israel is continuing to honor those killed in the brutal Hamas attacks on October 7th last year. One of the communities that suffered the most that day was a kibbutz named Kfar Aza. Our CBN Israel news team made the trip to the village near the Gaza border. They walked the streets and heard the stories of one of the worst attacks on that terrible day. Chris Mitchell brings us this first-hand account.
Some of you have already seen it with your own eyes, and for some it's the first time. And I think that being here and seeing it with your own eyes, and I tell this to every person that comes here, is extremely important. I think that watching it through the screen, seeing photos and videos, hearing about it, is not quite the same as seeing it with your own eyes.
IDF Reserve Captain Maya Bentwich gave CBN News a first-hand tour of Kfar Aza, one of the 22 kibbutzim attacked by Hamas on October 7th. Of the 950 residents, Hamas murdered 63, kidnapped 18, in all 10% of the people.
I'm going to try and take you back to October 7th, 6:30 a.m., where we have 15 minutes non-stop ongoing alarms that were alarming even for the people who lived here and were used to living under fire. Less than 30 minutes later, we have hundreds of terrorists infiltrating this very kibbutz. The estimation is 300 to 400. They come in by air with gliders, Buckeyes, by land with pickup trucks. Most of them had machine guns glued on them, set on automatic, and with motorbikes. And unfortunately come in very well prepared, and they just start shooting, rampaging, screaming and yelling in Arabic. They come in with guns, RPGs, grenades, bombs, and they just start shooting. And people are hiding inside their mamads. And this is what's going on. This is before 7 a.m. Now, we're going to be talking later about what a mamad is, but a mamad is supposed to be protecting you from bombs, from missiles, not from terrorists. And this is the reality of October 7th.
We walked along what has become called the Street of Death.
It's not just bodies. You would have dismantled bodies, bodies that were beheaded, that were raped, sexually assaulted, set on fire. Yeah. So this man and this dog survived October 7th. and she stayed silent, and they're now back here.
We met Raphael on the way.
So how did you survive?
A lot of prayers, and it's not something logic I can explain, because it's not. I can tell you that 10 meters away from me, people being killed and their house being burned. So I have no logic explained to say why I'm alive and they are not. It is what it is.
Bentwich says as time goes by, the story is in danger of being drowned out.
One thing is to remember the people, to tell the stories because there are so many, but another is to keep on giving context. We're not in a state of trauma, oh, this happened to us, we need to keep telling this to the world. No, this is not the situation. The situation is that something that should concern humanity, not just our nation, not just our people, not just the Jews. Something happened here on a humanitarian level that should concern the world. And the world is stating a lot of opinions as to what's going on around us. And I get that. But you still need the context, and this is the context. Because, like I said, on October 6th, there was a ceasefire. And on October 7th, Hamas chose to break it.
Bentwich took us to a different neighborhood.
And if you'd ask the residents of the kibbutz, they'll tell you it was the most beautiful neighborhood. Almost every single person that lived here and was here on the 7th was either murdered or kidnapped, especially from the strip we're just walking. And 4 out of the 5 that are still being held hostage from this kibbutz, from Kfar Aza, 4 of them are from here, from this strip. You'll see their names and faces. When you see the red writing on the signs, it means they were murdered, and when you see the yellow writing, it means they were kidnapped.
With Gaza in the background, Bentwich talked about the second wave on October 7th.
They were wearing regular clothes. They were not wearing the Nukhba forces uniforms. And they loot. But not only do they loot, they did a lot of the atrocious acts. They did the murdering, the raping, the sexual assault, the kidnapping. A lot of it was done by them. And then they go back. But the message you still see outside these apartments was not done by us. Most of it was not done by the terrorists. It was done by those who came to loot, by those Gazans.
Many of the people in Kfar Aza believed in peace.
We're talking about people that would go at least once a week to the Gazan border to pick up sick kids and women who had cancer, drive them to hospitals in the center of Israel so that they could get proper medical treatment. With their own cars, they didn't get paid for it. They did it out of the kindness of their hearts and out of the need to build a better future because they believed in peace.
We talked with Bentwich about her calling.
I'm honored to be doing this because I think it's important for people to see it, and that as time goes by, it gets harder to see it and to understand, and especially what the world is getting, so we need to get it out there. Every person that comes here, I tell them when they finish here, and I'm going to say the same thing to you, that you're now ambassadors. You're not just a part of our heartbeat, you're now ambassadors, because seeing it with your own eyes is different.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Kibbutz Kfar Aza, Israel.
Here in the U.S., Election Day is less than 2 weeks away, and millions of Americans are already lining up to cast their votes. Trump hit the campaign trail in Georgia today, while Harris prepares for her live town hall in Pennsylvania tonight with CNN. On both sides, the political rhetoric is heating up as we close in on November 5th.
So the bottom line is this. We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want?
She's lazy as hell, and she's got that reputation. She's a radical left lunatic.
Polls show Harris and Trump are neck and neck across 7 critical battleground states, and Democrats are growing more anxious about potential cracks in Harris's blue wall. Meanwhile, the FBI says Russia and other nations are spreading disinformation about the election, including using artificial intelligence to confuse voters. Katie Glenn Daniel joins us now. She's the state policy director at Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. Katie, we know abortion is an election issue that may bring a lot of people to the polls. After Roe v. Wade was declared unconstitutional, each state must decide its own abortion law. Where do you see this issue in some key states?
Well, we certainly see this motivating the electorate, and in particular, in those states where abortion is directly on the ballot. There are 10 states where voters will not just vote on who they want to be the president, who they want to be their other elected officials, but also on the issue of abortion. And so this is extremely important that voters understand the stakes, not just for the tens of thousands of babies whose lives are at risk, but also for their moms and for the taxpayers who don't want to fund elective abortions.
During an interview last night on NBC, Harris called abortion a fundamental freedom and opposed making concessions for religious exemptions. What's your reaction to that?
Well, it was shocking to hear. It certainly is in line with her past treatment of this issue. She believes in no limits abortion, no limit to any point in gestation. She opposes laws that provide women even with information about alternatives. So it's not shocking that this is her position. It is shocking, especially if you're a voter who's a Christian or someone of faith, to hear her say that she would force you or your doctor to participate in abortion, either by paying for it or, in the case of our faithful doctors, to have to perform abortions that end babies' lives.
Republicans are accusing Democrats of using scare tactics to get voters on their side, and they're focusing heavily on debunking these false claims. Is the GOP trying to avoid what happened in 2022 when they underperformed due to this issue? And do you think they'll be successful this time around?
Well, we are seeing many leaders like Ron DeSantis, the governor here in my home state of Florida, really get in the game and communicate directly with voters about the stakes of these initiatives and about what the Democrats want, which is abortion on demand with no limits paid for by the taxpayers. We know from 2022, those candidates that did well were the ones who spoke clearly and with compassion about what they are for, which is saving babies and protecting moms, while those candidates who acted like ostriches and hid their heads in the sand were unsuccessful. So I think we'll see some of the same. The candidates who are speaking out well, the leaders who are speaking out well, we know that voters respond to this. And that's why we encourage every candidate and every voter to really consider this issue and speak to your community, your friends and family about it.
So, Katie, what's your organization, Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, doing to win the messaging war on abortion?
Well, we are directly on the ground. We will touch 4 million voters at the door, as well as reaching millions of voters through digital ads and television ads in the next couple of weeks. We want to hear what the voters think. We want to make sure that they know what Democrats think about this issue. So that's going to be our main focus, is just getting to the millions of persuadable voters, some of whom don't always turn out, and make sure every pro-lifer in America is turning out to vote and that they are voting their values.
Katie Glenn Daniel, thanks for being here. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
Up next, as North Korean troops join Russia's war on Ukraine, the harrowing story about how a defector risked everything to flee the Hermit Kingdom, when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin is challenging the West's global dominance, today hosting 36 world leaders at a summit designed to boost Moscow's image. The Kremlin says the three-day BRICS summit is the largest foreign policy event ever held in Russia. It includes the leaders of China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and many others. Putin called on the nations to deepen their political and economic ties and challenge American leadership on the global stage. When it comes to Russia's war, North Korea is seemingly supplying Moscow's invasion with extra manpower. Secretary of State Lloyd Austin confirmed today the North Korean regime has sent troops to join Russia's fight. Ahead of the official confirmation, the Pentagon addressed the issue.
North Korea and Russia have a relationship. As to the eaches of that relationship and the kinds of exchanges of information and training that they've had over the years, that in and of itself is not something that's necessarily new. But obviously, we're continuing to keep a close eye on this as it relates to the situation in Ukraine.
The U.S. claims North Korea has sent 3,000 troops. Ukraine claims it's more than 10,000. In North Korea, Christianity is outlawed and believers are imprisoned, tortured, and killed. Thousands have defected to South Korea over the last 2 decades, including a former military official. CBN's Lucille Toulousan tells the story of her harrowing escape and the miracles that saved her.
During the Great North Korea Starvation in 1998, Mrs. Son served in the military as caretaker of supplies and later as broadcaster of the Chuche, North Korea's propaganda outlet.
My father was the provincial governor and bribed the military officer with a pig so I could get in the military, because it was a way we can get food rations and not starve like the rest of the country. But things got bad when my father lost the elections. He became very sick and died. My brother was detained and died of starvation in prison.
In order to survive, Mrs. Son and her mother escaped to China.
We swam across the Tuman River for 2 days and bribed the North Korean soldiers and brokers in China. There, we found a Christian church who helped us.
After a few months, Chinese police began to trail them.
I was already a Christian but not deep. But I knew it was God who protected me and instructed me to hide and hold onto the underbars of a truck. I got away, but my mom was taken back to North Korea. I went back to rescue her, only to find out that she suffered and died in prison because she did not deny her Christian faith.
Mrs. Son returned to China, where she married a Chinese Christian. Over time, authorities arrested her 2 more times, eventually putting her in a North Korean prison under inhumane conditions where once again Mrs. Son experienced God's help.
I had to eat insects to survive. After 400 days, I was released, malnourished, and can barely walk. This was when my husband used his Chinese citizenship to get me to South Korea.
Here, Mrs. Son joined the Sopyeong Church, where she grew in her Christian faith.
This is Sopyeong Church. Sopyeong means Seoul and Pyongyang. Many of its members are North Koreans whom they helped settle in South Korea. They envision a unified North and South Korea by spreading the gospel in North Korea.
It is impossible to reunite politically because of different cultures and backgrounds. Therefore, reunification can only happen through faith. During the starvation, many North Korean defectors escaped to China. Many believed Jesus, received Christian education in other countries, and became missionaries in North Korea, where there are now about 600,000 Christians in underground churches. Many Christians in South Korea who are praying for reunification believe it will happen in 5 years.
North Korean Christians like Mrs. Son can help make this happen.
I want to thank my mom and be like her. I am also dedicating my life to serve Jesus Christ and spread the gospel and worship Him until I die.
Lucille Toulousan, CBN News, Seoul.
Coming up, homelessness is rising in the U.S., how one community is tackling the issue head-on, right after this. Welcome back. The high cost of housing is a big issue in this year's election. In some parts of the country, homelessness is soaring. Some communities, like Oklahoma City, are experiencing spikes more than twice the national average, spurring the local government there to work with dozens of nonprofit and faith organizations to give people a place to live. CBN's Brody Carter reports.
Scary.
So homelessness is scary?
Definitely.
What's the scariest part?
The unknown, not knowing where you're going to get your next meal.
Yeah.
Where you're going to sleep, who's going to attack you.
Homeless for 3 years, Timothy Gadberry feels like he's fallen through the cracks of a system that's now left him behind.
There's no life to go back to. I feel like I'm a dead man walking.
It affects a staggering number of Americans, with more than 650,000 homeless on any given night.
I have been so hungry, almost in tears, not knowing what I was going to eat.
Homelessness in America is at an all-time high in the last 15 years, surging 12% in just 1 year. Here in Oklahoma City, are seeing a 28% increase. That's more than twice the national average.
In response, leaders have adopted a housing-first approach, which is seeing success in bigger cities like Dallas and L.A. One rehousing initiative aims to put 500 homeless people in open apartment units within 2 years, no strings attached.
It's about a $13 million program. That's for 2 years.
Erica Warren with the Key to Home Partnership works with more than 50 organizations and nonprofits, including Catholic Charities, to find apartments for those in need.
I don't tell my mom about the times where I've seen a guy run up an apartment complex with a gun, or don't tell my mom about the time where I stepped on a used needle, or, you know, things like that. But that is the reality of it, right? People from all creeds, races, walks of life experiencing homelessness together.
While some danger can be involved, Rachel Golden remains committed to changing lives one apartment at a time. She also sees it as a balancing act, trying to keep landlords and service providers on the same page in order to keep the initiative moving forward.
Homeless people experiencing homelessness, whatever term you want to use, are just like you and me. They, like I said, we're 2 or 3 bad paychecks away from being in that situation.
In Oklahoma City, lack of affordable housing has caused rent to skyrocket. The cost of a one-bedroom apartment averages $850 a month, leaving many struggling to make ends meet. Nearly 75% of monthly minimum wage income goes toward rent here, and it's a crisis reaching nationwide. As the Key to Home program marches forward, the goal is not only to reduce homelessness, but to help restore dignity and rebuild lives. Advocates stress that success is measured when people have the support needed to stay housed, stable, and contribute to their communities.
Just be kind. Maybe ask them if they need a hug. Somebody to maybe sit with them, talk to them for a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want help financially. They want somebody to actually care, genuinely care.
Reporting in Oklahoma City, Brody Carter, CBN News.
Still ahead, love at 30,000 feet. Next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a pilot on a rescue mission fell in love with one of his passengers. Southwest Airlines Captain Matthew Prebish was helping rescue shelter pets in areas affected by the recent hurricanes, flying more than 150 animals out of Tennessee and Florida to find homes in the Midwest in partnership with Greater Good Charities and Lucky Dog Animal Rescue. That's when Matthew met Avery, one of the kittens on board, and immediately fell in love. The captain is proud to give her a forever home. Isn't that sweet? Well, thanks for joining us for this edition of Faith Nation. We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good night, everyone.